Hello, everybody, and welcome to 6 Plus Plus. My name's Ben, and today we are going to be doing an event report. So, very recently, I took my Drukhari to a small RTT over in Bedworth. I took the Reaper's Wages Grotmus detachment. So I'm sort of just going to go a bit about the venue first of all, and then we'll discuss the list, my thoughts going into the event, and then we'll go through the games, and then sort of any closing thoughts after that. So let's get into it. So this event was held at a place called Venator Tabletop Gaming. They're a relatively new store. Been open about 6 months or so, and this was their first 40k event. There's about 18 of us there, and they hosted a great event. The venue was lovely, and Rob the TO did a fantastic job. So big shout out to those guys. So with all the compliments over, let's move on to the list. So this is my Reaper's Wager Drukhari list. So we start off with an Archon with the Arch Raider enhancement. So gives the vehicle he's embarked within a Scout 9. Then we have a Beast Pack. Again, another good scouting unit, a space buying unit. Just a great unit for the points cost. We have 2 battle lines, so we have a unit of 10 Cavalry Warriors and a unit of 5 Racks. Racks are great for just cheap little idiots. Aren't going to do a lot. They're going to die and give you some extra Bane tokens to do so. Then we have 2 transports, so we have a Raider and a Venom. Within those goes the Court of the Archon with the 5 special weapons and the Archon, and then the other 5 idiot Cavalites go inside the Venom. We then have a 6-man grotesque unit, something just a little bit stodgy to get out there. Not necessarily die easily, trade quite well, and they do have a fight on death and a flamer, a good amount of flamers for some Overwatch. We have 2 units of Talos with the liquefy guns, with the twin-linked Haywire and a Talos gauntlet. We have 2 units of Haywire Scourge. We have 2 Mandrakes, a Void Raven Bomber, and 2 Void Weavers as my Harlequin's contingent. Void Raven Bomber is just great for going out and picking up little units that you can't get to. It was actually one of the things that I sort of initially dropped from the Reaper's list. I've been quite used to running 2. But I sort of initially dropped it and realised quite quickly, it was a game against Death Guard I had, and I was like, I cannot go and interact with that 12-man fight first brick who's quite happily tucked in on their natural expansion. And I'm like, what will do that is a plane. It loves picking up marine equivalent bodies. But that was essentially its job here, is just to go through, pick up some little bits of scoring, stuff that's a bit difficult to drag out with combat or speed. It can go and do that work for you. Void Weavers, they're both running prismatic cannons. This is because I've got Haywire everywhere else, and I've got 2 Dark Lances. So I needed something in case I run into a monster-heavy matchup that can just a bit more reliably get some damage through on these monsters. So that was that. This event was on UKTC terrain. I'm quite well practiced on that, and I sort of had about 10, 15 practice games with Reaper's Wager before taking this, and this is where I settled. Obviously, as most of you know, I'm a big Harlequins fan, and I started initially with 36 troops. 36 troop and troop masters. And I quickly realised I was just missing a hell of a lot of shooting components, and Court of the Archon doesn't quite fill that quite as well as they used to in Sky Splinter with the Ignores cover and sustain hits too. So I needed to put some of those shooting elements that I'd not been running back in, such as the Scourge. That was sort of my thoughts going in. It's fairly standard for Drukhari. Void Weavers, great as well. They give a battle shock test. So more ways of trying to generate pain tokens. And it can be quite handy when it comes to scoring certain things. If you can battle shock a unit on an objective, you have to secure no man's land. Great, it might be OC2, but now it's OC nothing because battle shocked. I'll just put something on there and catch that. So that was the thought process. Going into my games. For my first game, I had Pavo. Pavo was running Hypercrypt Necrons, which very recently sort of just been hit with a nerf bat again. So Hypercrypt obviously now can only pick up 2 units per turn. So that was where that was, and obviously 3-inch Deep Strike had now moved to a 6-inch Deep Strike, which is huge for a Drukhari player. Because screening 3 inches is a pig. Screening 6 inches is a hell of a lot easier. So with this game, Pavo had 3 Catan, 2 Doomsday Arcs, 3 units of 3 heavy destroyers, 1 with the anti-infantry ridiculous amount of shots, and then 2 with the big anti-tank guns. There's a unit of death marks, a hex mark, and a smattering of other bits. So sort of my plan early doors going into this game, seeing the list, was I want to pick up everything that wasn't a Catan as quickly as possible. So the little scoring pieces that are just going to zip around the board, grabbing in points. So I was like, if I could get rid of those quite quickly, that'd be great. So I sort of leveraged the plane to pick up a couple of units of destroyers, and then when the Catan finally made it to the midboard, sort of went in on those. All quite combined, grenade strap, tank shock, and then using the core to quite good effect to reduce them. So the game ended where he literally had the Nightbringer and the Void Dragon left alive, and I had quite a large portion of the board. So that's where the game ended. I did win 95-69. Pavo was a great opponent, but having those Doomsday Arcs, I think, was sort of the plan of his crutch. But Haywire Scourge, doing Haywire Scourge things, just said, no, thank you, Doomsday Arcs, get off the board. And so they did. So it was a great first game for the event. So moving on into the second game, we had John and his Eldari. Now, John had brought his son along to play along with him. His son Thomas his son Thomas actually ended up winning most sporting for the event, which I thought was really sweet. He was a lovely little lad, very engaging, and they apparently had been playing T-Sons as well, which I think kudos to him, because I can't even wrap my brain around that army. Never mind if I was about 14 years of age. So John had a fairly standard Eldar list, a smattering of characters, some scorpions, some rangers, spiders, the Avatar of Cain, and 2 fire prisms. Now, I sort of felt like disrespecting fire prisms a bit, and they are no joke, I have to say. What he did is quite cleverly, he left them sort of skirting around the back of his home field objective and piece of terrain, sort of moving one out, getting the angles for linked fire and fading back. So it was very good with those, and actually didn't end up touching those the whole game. So they just sort of reliably shot for 5 turns of the game, and there's very little I could do about it in the end. But the sort of overall plan here was I wanted to get out early, push all the objectives, lock down the board. He had started the Avatar of Cain in reserves, which sort of gave me that early agency to be like, right, let's push out and make sure he can't come anywhere of any consequence, which is exactly what happened. We pushed him back into his own deployment zone, and then it was just a game of trading. Now, Eldar, unfortunately, quite pricey at the moment in terms of points, and he could not trade effectively into my units. Particularly, I had the unit of 6 grotesques sort of sat in the middle on the middle objective. So anytime we tried to get near to engage, it was an Overwatch, and they quite reliably kill, sort of 5 warp spiders, for example, which can be quite a bane. So it was sort of a game of trading, and eventually John just lost the battle of attrition. So I just dominated the primary, and pushed on from there. There was quite a funny little anecdote, actually. My grotesque did make a push for his home objective, charging the Avatar of Cain. I think I drew behind enemy lines. They charged the Avatar of Cain, didn't do a lot to the Avatar. But what they did do is not die to the Avatar either, which felt very bizarre and wrong. But essentially, what he did is he took 3 wounds off 1 grotesque. So not killing a single grotesque feels a bit unlucky for that poor Avatar. They did die eventually, and then the Avatar pushed around and charged the court in the middle, and spent 2 turns in combat with the court, and the court won that one. Go Court of the Archon, one of my favourite units in the game, I have to say. They're so versatile. Good shooting, good melee, fights first, good OC, sticky objectives. They are great. Now, this being Burn and Trust, the score perhaps doesn't quite reflect how well John played. I think he played a great game, but unfortunately, the primary on this one is a bit mean. Bless him. Right, on to round 3. So the third and final round, I had Kylo, Turley, and his Custodes in the Solar Spearhead detachment with all of the Dreadnoughts. Now, my list is quite tooled for vehicles. But I do know Kylo. He's a very good player, really nice guy. We seem to meet at a lot of local events these days now. So it was only inevitable. I think we've been wanting to play for a while. It was only inevitable that we were going to run into each other in the final. Now, Kylo's list was the character Telemon Dreadnought, so the -1 damage, 5 up feel no pain. He had another 2 Telemon Dreadnoughts, and they were all three were running one gun and one fist. So they're relatively tough. He then had 3 Venerable Dreadnoughts. He had 2 units of jet bikes, 2 mans, three sisters, and 2 of the Caladius grav tanks. So a relatively chunky sort of stat check style list. However, I did feel relatively confident going into this. I've got the haywire, so those invuls don't necessarily mean a lot to my shooting. It was whether I could leverage it in the right positions without losing that. So quite early on in this game, there was a push on the left hand side with one of his Venerable Dreadnoughts, but then all of his Telemons and a couple of his bikes came on down the right hand side. Due to my deployment and the way I positioned, it was quite apparent early on. It was, let's ignore that left flank. That Venerable Dreadnought can quite happily sit there and hold that for the whole game. If that's all he does, fine. He can score him those points. Not a problem. So I think he finally got on there properly about round 4. He was playing it fairly cagely, rightly so. I've got these haywire that pop out and then bugger off again. But it ended up being, really, really tight game, close margins, and sort of the overall score did get there in the end. Going second helps massively on linchpin, and in terms of sort of the final turn primary score, there was a very unfortunate moment for Kylo where he had 2 of his dreads left in my deployment zone, 1 on 3 wounds, 1 on 1 wound. No, sorry, 1 on 4 wounds, 1 on 1 wound left. And unfortunately, both did fail battle shock, meaning they were unable to unsticky my home objective after finally being able to reach it, and also then couldn't do established locus in my deployment zone, which was just really disappointing for him, bless him. We did both trade home objectives in the end, so I had sort of 5 Cavalites and a Venom on his home objective, and then he did get a Dreadnought on my home objective, and unfortunately just unable to sticky it. So a game of great trading. And I did pull out the win on that one. I was quite happy with how I played that. I think we both left it all on the table, made very, very, very few mistakes, and we left it all out there. And I did pull off the win. So that ended my event. So I did end the event in first place. So my friend Ashley Farm there, he took Legion of Excess, Slanesh Demons, and he did come second, also undefeated. So very narrowly got that over him by about 14 points overall. It was a great event. Honestly, really, really good event. Really enjoyed myself. All 3 opponents were great, and honestly, the whole vibe there was just perfect, exactly how you want a 40k event to be played. I did also pick up Best Painted, which again is always lovely to pick up. Just have someone recognise how nice your army looks. It's great. So that does end sort of the event review section. So after the fact, what I would like to reflect on. So Void Weavers were brilliant. To be quite honest, the battle shot mechanic was wonderful, just for picking up some extra pain tokens. Them having a 4 pinball means that you look at their profile and go toughness 6 wounds. People don't often dedicate an awful lot into that. But with a 4 pinball, it does mean they stick around quite a lot. I often found myself not losing them too early on in the game, so they were getting a good few rounds of shooting out of them. The bomber was the absolute right call, putting that back in. Just being able to reach out, pick up little scoring pieces without having to trade anything sort of negatively. Granted, it doesn't make its points back. So it is a very much a one and done unit. As long as you pick your, whether you ingress that so it can get the angles that you want it to get, and quite often it can happily sit behind your home big L and be safe. So as long as you sort of pick where you want to go, what you want to pick up, then it's a fantastic tool just for digging things out and not overexposing yourself. Grotesques were probably my MVP of the weekend. I loved them in absolutely every game, and I have to thank Mr. Lohman for that recommendation. I know we sort of, as in the art conference, we've been discussing lists a lot. Um, you know, with where we go with Reaper's Wager. So big shout out to Tom for that recommendation. But they were fantastic. Same for the Talos. Really, really enjoyed them. But overall, I think the list gelled quite well. I've sort of got the surgical melee precision units that can go in and pick the targets when I need to. I've got the ranged output to just sort of pop in and out, shoot something, get back out of there, and not negatively lose anything. And then Mandrake's just going out and scoring what they need to score. So currently, I'm not looking to change the list all that much. Obviously, we have the impending Eldar Codex, which hopefully we'll see some datasheet changes, some points changes to existing Harlequins units. So we'll see what they bring. But I am really liking this double Void Weaver at the moment. So we'll see what they bring. But otherwise, there's not a lot more I can say. It was just a great event, and I'm happy with that list for now. Honestly, if you guys have any questions, obviously comment down below. I'll try my best to get back to you. Sort of respond to that as I can. Otherwise, if you can like, subscribe, follow us on socials, do all the good stuff. And yeah, that was great. So I'll catch you next time, guys. Thank you very much. Bye bye.